to kind of go through this morning as we look at what we're going to look at. And I just want to quickly just pray a psalm over us as we go through this. If you would, just really quickly, if you bow with me, we just say these words. It is meditation from my heart, and the words of my mouth be pleasing in your sight. Amen. All right. We're talking about words today. We're talking about what we say and the things that come out of our mouth. It sounds really simple and very cavalier. It sounds like a very simple idea for us to talk about. Yeah, there's a lot going on here. I remember in high school, I played basketball through high school, and I was absolutely average. Like I was definitely on the team and was sometimes in the game. And so if you looked up basketball players, like I was one of them at that time. Like that was how good I was. And I remember there was a game, and actually was fairly decent. And there was a game coming up that was against this team. I went to a small Christian private school, and we had to play other small Christian private schools here in the state of Florida. And we were playing a team called the Upper Room Fighting Christians. That was their actual, like for real, that was their real mascot, was the Fighting Christians. So I was like, this just sounds like a lot of churches I've been to. Is the mascot of the Fighting Christians. And so I was like, man, somebody, they brought a carpet color one day, and they were like, we got a mascot. This is going to be great. And so the Fighting Christians were going to play us, and the Fighting Christians had a guy on the team. His name was Bobo. Now Bobo he was already being recruited for some major colleges. Bobo was about 6'8", 6'9". He had a huge wingspan, could jump out of the gym, was an incredible athlete. And so we knew because of Bobo being there were going to be scouts in the stands, there would be a lot of people coming to watch this game because everyone would come watch the Fighting Christians play us. And so I was excited because I was like, there's going to be people there watching, there's scouts, it's going to be a big crowd, it's going to be really, really fun. And again, I actually was not bad at the time. And so there was this, so Bobo was taking over the game. Like Bobo was really good. We were up by just a couple points. I remember specifically, we were up by 2 points. And it was in the fourth quarter, and there was about 4 minutes left. And we had a guy on our team, his name was Nick Curley. Nick Curley was a point guard, kind of a small guy. And Nick Curley had snuck in and had stolen the ball from Bobo and as we were playing defense. So I, being a genius, just took off down the court. I was all by myself. I took off on this fast break of waiting. I was just like, if they throw me the ball, here's what's going to happen. In my head, I just all it very cool. They were going to throw me the ball. I was going to catch that ball. I was going to take one dribble, and I was going to go up, and I was going to dunk this thing with 2 hands. And when I did that, I was going to bring the backboard down with me. And they were just going to call the game at that point and be like, that was incredible, game over, you win. They were going to carry me out on their shoulders. It was I had it all figured out. It was good. They were going to play the fight song, they were going to carry me out. Everybody was going to be amazed by me. That was my plan. And so I looked back, and I looked to find out where the ball is. And I look, and there's, and I see our point guard literally has in his hand. And I scream at him. At the same time, Bobo had a little bit of an injury. And Bobo hits Nick Curley in the face, real hard. And Nick Curley goes down to the ground. He's laying on the ball. And that ball is my shot to become a superstar. Like, this is my chance. And so I scream down the court, get up and throw me the ball, Nick. Well, it turns out that Bobo had really hit Nick very hard. Nick had suffered a fracture to his orbital bone and was immediately bleeding and was sent off the court and was rushed to the emergency room. The game ended, he didn't win, probably because I didn't dunk the ball. And I remember specifically after the game thinking, I should probably talk to Nick. Like, I probably should maybe apologize to see how he's doing. So I went to the emergency room. And I remember I grabbed some Skittles, because that makes things better, or whatever. So I grabbed some Skittles and I went in the next room. And I brought in the Skittles and I was like, hey, how are you doing? He was like, I'm fine. I was like, are you? And he was like, I'm good. And I said, so you hit me pretty bad, huh? And he was like, oh, I don't remember that. And I thought, good, he doesn't remember. And he goes, well, the only thing I remember is somebody yelling down the court, get up and throw me the ball, Nick. I was, oh, you remember that? Oh, well, that's too bad. I brought you some Skittles. I think we're good now. Now, at that moment, I remember specifically thinking, I wish I could take these words back. And I hate this. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not just giving, like, I remember specifically when she was going through my head on that. Because, at that moment, I had this thought, and some of you have had this thought, and some of you are going to have this thought someday. I had this thought that was, they're going to get through it. And Mom, it's the worst thought you can have. As a teenage boy, it's like, it's the worst thought you can have. And I remember specifically this illustration that my mom did, and I'm sure some of you might have done this with me too. Anybody have this happen? Where you say something that you shouldn't have said. And words would come out of your mouth. And I remember my mother specifically sitting me down and having this talk with me. She took a tube of toothpaste, and she said, Kevin, the words that come out of your mouth are like this toothpaste coming out of this tube. They come out, and now they're out of your mouth. And now, if I ask you, can you get those words back in? Can you get that toothpaste back in? The words that come out, Dad said something that I shouldn't have said, and you know I shouldn't have said it. I had said something that I wish I could take back, but at the end of the day, I can't take it back. They're out there. There's nothing I can do to get those words back into my mouth. There's nothing I can do to put the toothpaste back in the tube. I'm just going to ask you, have you ever had a moment like this? Maybe it's in your marriage. Maybe it's with your kids. Maybe it's with a coworker, or a friend, or a acquaintance, or a neighbor, or a person at Starbucks, or whatever it is, that you have said something. And you think that, like, man, I wish I could put that toothpaste back in the tube. I can't be the only one. I'm going to guess about others. So what we're looking at today, honestly, it's something that like sounds so simple, it sounds so easy. I don't think it is. I just don't think it is. Because we all know that there's things we say, and that we can pretend like they're not important. We can pretend like they're just words, and that's all it is. But we all know there's much, much deeper consequences to it. In fact, today we're going to talk about how deep those consequences really go. The book of Proverbs talks about the words we say over and over again. Solomon is all about teaching us how we can be wise with our words. Like, this is a crucial thing that he talks about over and over and over again. And for us, like, we might think this is something that really is not important for us to get into, but I promise you, if you look at what he talks about, there's no choice but for us to talk about it. Chapter 12 of Proverbs, as we just heard, there's multiple times in chapter 12. Solomon goes into this exact idea. And this isn't the only place we're going to bounce around a lot today. But again, what he says in verse 6, the words of the wicked lie in wait for blood, but the speech of the upright rescues them. So, verse 17, an honest witness tells the truth, a false witness tells lies. The words of the reckless, which we're going to talk about in a little bit, the recklessness of words, pierce like swords. But the tongue of the wise brings healing. It's actually healing comes from it. Truthfulness endures forever, but a lying tongue lasts only a moment. The Lord detests, verse 22, the Lord detests lying lips, but he delights in those who are trustworthy. Verse 23, the prudent keep their knowledge to themselves, but a fool, they share their heart, it only blurts out folly, which is really great. We're going to get into that in a second too. Now, you might be like, you might think like we say a lot of words and a lot of them don't matter. A lot of them just fluff. Now, if you don't know, there's been a lot of studies on how many words men say, how many words women say, right? And so, like, men do say a lot of words, actually. You might be shocked to hear that. But men, anybody have a guess how many words a day a man says? Has anybody have a guess on that? 700, and actually there was studies that said 700 at one point, but that actually has been disproven by more recent studies. Yeah, three words a day. Oh, 300, okay. I was like, man, you got it figured out. It was just like, I love you. I get it, right? That's all I needed to say. We're done for the day. Yeah, 300. So men actually speak about 1,500 words a day. 1,500, 1,600 words. A lot of words. Now women speak more than that. I don't know if you know how many words women, anybody ever guess, based on what that first number is? 25,000. A little lower. Yeah. They're actually much closer, and the most recent studies have shown that it's much closer than we originally been told to believe. Actually, women speak 16,250 words a day. There's actually, the newest studies are showing that it's actually not that big a gap. Now, there's about 500 word gap, right? And so women do speak 500 more words a day. I'm assuming that's because they have to repeat themselves a lot more because we're not great listeners. Although sometimes in my defense, I will say, there are times where my speak like she will start a conversation with me, and then she'll just leave the room, but keep talking. And I'll be like, am I supposed to follow? Or like, is this a walk and talk? Is this like an Aaron Sorkin episode? Like, are we walking West Wing and we just talking? Like, what am I supposed to do? I don't know. Do I follow or I stay here? I don't know if I'm part of it. And do you need me for this conversation? So sometimes I do think that happens too. She has to repeat herself. But just to say, I do think women have to repeat themselves a lot. And we both speak a lot of words. It's a lot of words. And the problem is we become really cavalier because that's a lot of words. We become really, really cavalier with those words. Because we're saying so many a day. We're getting so many things out there. And we have so many thoughts and feelings and emotions that need to be shared through words. It's not bad. But we become really cavalier with them. We become really too comfortable almost with them. Paul is reminding us that we can't just do that. As we've been in this series looking at wisdom, one of the most important wisdom pieces that Solomon gives us is this wisdom of words. What are the words you're saying? And evaluating them. Are they good? Are they life-giving? Are they the words that you should be saying? And I think for some of us, we're not really good at thinking about that, right? Every day, the moment, honestly, I remember studying this years ago. Like the way that you speak is a metaphysical phenomenon. It's magic. It's really unique in the body how this happens. When your brain, so it actually starts in your brain, when your brain tells your body that it's ready to speak, that you have something to say, the body responds to it. And inside of your larynx is two little tiny, these two little membranes that come together, and they're gooey, and they're gelatinous, they're kind of gross, but they come together, and when they close, what happens is the air passes up through them. It goes through your lungs, through that larynx, and it makes them vibrate. They start to vibrate. And those vibrations carry up through your throat. They bounce off the hard and the soft surfaces of your mouth and your face. And what comes out of that, like what is created, are words. That's what's coming out of your face. That's what's happening. But the part that we forget is that it's all triggered by the brain. These don't just happen on their own. They come from somewhere else. And for some of us, that filter that's supposed to be between the brain and the body is not super thick. The filter's a little worn out. You know, I assume, you know, it's like there's brake pads that are just not doing their job anymore, right? We're just rotor to metal. Like that's where we're living now. We've moved on beyond that filter. Right? And there's a filter that's supposed to be there because someone's saying, like, you need to choose words wisely. Don't just throw them out there. Don't just be cavalier about them. Don't just get too comfortable with them. We need to be careful with them. We need to be cautious with them because these words have an enormous amount of power. In fact, in chapter 15, if you have a Bible, you can follow on. Again, this Proverbs is like really tough because there's like a really good line here, and then there's a really good line like here, and there's a really good line here. So it's really hard to put them together. But in chapter 15, we see right at the beginning of chapter 15, it says this: the heart of a gentle answer turns away wrath. It says this: the heart of the righteous weighs its answers, but the mouth of the wicked gushes evil. It gushes evil. Notice this. I just want you to see this. What happens with the heart of that has answers is it's thought through. The heart of the righteous weighs its answers. It's thinking. But the evil ones, those that are wicked, they're just all over the place. They're not thinking about it for a second. I asked Marie to bring some toothpaste today. She brought this one. It's not a huge tube of toothpaste. I appreciate that she brought it. The other one she brought was charcoal toothpaste. I don't think we should be putting what we put in our grill also in our grill. Like, I don't think somebody got those two confused. It was like, I don't know, is the charcoal goes in the grill? I'll put it in toothpaste. Somebody was wrong about which grill we were talking about. So I didn't bring that one up here. It was black and it was really scary. Anyway, I think she put it in her mouth before, and so she's okay. But yeah, it's just gushing evil. There's no thought process behind it. It's just putting it out there over and over again. No filter whatsoever. It's careless. It's cavalier. In fact, if you flip over to 18, He says this in chapter 18, verse 21. The tongue has the power of life and death, and those who love it will be free. It has the tongue has power of life and death. That's why this is so important. The words we say actually have the power to bring life or death into the moment we're in. We have the ability to speak life into other people. We have the ability to speak life into the world around us and the things that we're a part of. We have the ability. You have the ability. When you go to work, when you interact with your family, when you're talking to your spouse, when you're parenting, you have the ability to bring life into that situation or to bring death into that situation by the words you say. You've probably seen it. I know that I have seen it. When the right words are said, you see people perk up. You see them start to change. As their demeanor changes, their body language changes, they become different people when you speak certain words. Or you see the words you say tear them down, tear them apart, make them feel worse. It's not hard to figure this out. And what Solomon's talking about here is that words matter. Now, I want to build this out as we go. Because I do want you to know that words matter. And we're going to talk about this in a second, but words in general matter. They bring life and they bring death. That's what words do. And we actually see this play out. Now, I want to talk theologically for just a second, and we're going to move into more of a practicality. But I want to talk about theology behind it because it's true. Words matter. They bring life and they bring death. We see it as far back as Genesis chapter 1. What happens in the very beginning? If you don't know where this is in your Bible, it's literally page 1. Page 1 of the Bible, chapter 1 of Genesis. It says that God starts creating. It says, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth, right? He creates everything there is. And it says, now the earth was formless. There's nothing going on. It has nothing to its own nature yet. And formless and empty. And over the surface of the deep was hovering the Spirit of God. And he was hovering over the waters, but then God said, he said, let there be light. And there was. The words he said actually created life. He goes day after day creating everything we see. Creating the birds in the sky, the fish in the sea, creating trees and plants and shrubs. He creates everything there is, even dumb things like mosquitoes and stuff. He creates all of it, but as he creates them, he does it by words. Words are literally creating life and death. Words are creating that. And then what's interesting is words don't just create. The next thing that words do is that words begin to confuse. So he creates a literal heaven on earth, a garden where everything is right and good, where his presence is never gone, and suddenly he creates this perfect place for us. But then, just a couple of chapters later, in Genesis chapter 3, we see where suddenly words are used to confuse. What happened? Because now the serpent was more crafty than any of those wild animals the Lord had made. And he said to the woman, again, a talking snake, it's weird. Why? Because words matter. If the snake couldn't talk, this conversation wouldn't happen. I never want to see a talking snake. Like, I don't want to see a snake. I definitely don't want to see a talking snake. Seems like a real problem that should have been fixed. But this talking snake shows up and uses words. And notice the words that are used. Starts off with, he said to the woman, and here we go, is God really said. So God spoke. God had words of life that created the perfect place. But what's the first question we're asked? Did God really say? Isn't how sin works every time that we go? It's not a full lie. It's just enough of them to be good. This isn't an outright lie. Notice that. He doesn't lie and say, God didn't say that. That's not what God said. That would be a lie. What he asks us is a question. Is God really just enough for us to doubt ourselves. Just enough words that it causes confusion. Words can create, but words can also cause confusion. Words can confuse us. And that's what Jesus did, to move us off center, to move us from this perfection of a heaven-like existence, this kingdom of heaven that was here on earth. He simply moves us from that with words. And then we don't just get creation that's now being confused, we get creation that is now being cursed. Just a few verses later, right, God shows up in chapter 3, verse 14. So the Lord God said to the serpent, right, after he deceived him, he said, because you have done this, cursed are you above all livestock and wild animals. You will crawl on your belly, you'll eat dust all the days of your life. I'll put an enmity between you and the woman, and between your offspring and hers. He will crush your head, you'll strike his heel. To the woman, he said, notice he's saying these things. These are words he's speaking. I will make you have pain during childbirth and the days of the earth. I'm so sorry that this is where it all began. With painful labor you will give birth to children, and your child with your husband will rule over you. To Adam, then he said, again, he's speaking to Adam now. Because you listened to your wife and ate fruit from the tree which I commanded you. You must not eat from it. Cursed is the ground because of you. You'll have painful toil, and you'll eat the food with it all the days of your life. It'll produce thorns and thistles for you, and you'll eat the plants of the field. By the sweat of your brow you will eat your food, until you return to the ground. Since from it you were taken, for dust you are, and dust you will return. You're cursed. We just went from having this creating of life to literally the same word. Words are the things that move us from a creation all the way to death. That's why Solomon's writing that there is this idea that we have the words that can give life or words that can give death. And so just to recap that really quickly, we have creation, we have confusion, and we have truth. All three of those come through words. And this isn't just a theological thing. I want you to think about it in your own life. This isn't a theological conversation, it's a practical conversation. Have you seen those play out in your own life? Have you seen the creation or the confusion or even curse start to be played out in your own life because of words that have been said? I believe it was Heschel who said that words create worlds, right? Because the words you say create the world around you. The words you say can build somebody up or tear them down in the way you handle it. In fact, if we go back to Proverbs 15, really quickly, this is what it says at the beginning of this poem. Solomon writes, a gentle answer. We go like that. 20 minutes ago, you good? Oh, we got it. Okay, next place. A gentle answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger. The tongue of the wise adorns knowledge. Here it is again. I want you to see it's a different verse, the same idea. But the mouth of the fool gushes folly. The eyes of the Lord are everywhere, keeping watch on the wicked and the good. The soothing tongue is a tree of life. Notice that Genesis 1 verse 8. Is a tree of life, but a perverse tongue crushes the spirit. Anybody as a parent, you ever had that moment where you've seen either you or a soothing tongue that is a tree of life to your children? Have you ever seen that where you've seen them rise to the words you say? You've said the right thing at the right time. Parents, we don't get it right very often, and kids forgive us for that. Like we're not. It's not an easy thing. But every once in a while you get those words right, and you're like, I did it. Feels really good. And you've seen your children rise to that. And then how many of us have seen the opposite, right? Where you said something, you said something in the heat of the moment, you said you may regret. And some of those, I'll be honest with you, I've worked with that said that like they still haunt me. They still stay with me. Where you've seen that happen. I'll be honest with you, my family growing up, I didn't grow up in like the most affirming family of just like everything's great. My family, I remember like kind of the general gist of my family was like the kindest it would get was like, well, you didn't screw that up too bad. And you'd be like, thank you. And you felt that way. It was nice. I remember literally on my wedding day, my brother was my best man. He leaned in and he hugged me after my wedding and he whispered in my ear and said, Kevin, I'm proud of you. And I remember thinking like, whoa, don't know that I ever heard that before. Like, you be careful. That's just not the way I was brought up. That's not the way my family operated, unless you do it with family like that. Then I met Marie's family, and my wife's family, they operate very different than that. They are wildly affirming all the time. Like, when I met them, they just thought I was great. Just because I great. You're so good at everything. I was like, I don't think I am. But I'm so glad you think so. And I remember, no kidding, we went out to eat one night, and we stopped to get ice cream afterwards, and they told me that I did a great job finishing my ice cream. I was an adult human man. And they told me that I did a great job finishing my ice cream. And honestly, I felt so seen. Thank you for noticing. I've been finishing my ice cream for years, and nobody said a word. It's almost like discomforting. Like anybody, I don't know if you're like me, if you grew up kind of in the household like I did, and you get around people like that, it's almost like, what's your problem? Like, how can you just think good things about people? You should think more bad things about people, and even yourself. Feel worse about yourself. That's what we're supposed to do. You know? It's wild. But I found myself, like, as you're around people like that, I don't know if you've ever had people like that, and you're like, speak into you like that. When you're around people like that, or at least when I am, what's crazy is, and this might just be me, is I want to rise to their voice. Like, I want to be the person they think I am. Like, you want to be the person your dog thinks you are. Right? Not that your cat thinks, because your cat doesn't, like you. They don't want to be tamed. They want to live out the words of God. We are a new being. The dog, you want to, it's like that idea. It's so weird around people like that, have that mentality. And for me, like, I find that even at times where I deal with this. I'll tell you with Jane, with Oliver, I remember a couple of years ago, there's a great book, if you're a dad, there's a great book that I was going through a couple of years ago during the COVID era, and it's called The Intentional Father by John Tyson. It's a great practical book on being a father and what it's like to be an intentional father. And as I was going through, one of the kind of exercises I wanted to do was I took my kids out, and I think we went to, I don't know why, we were like Cracker Barrel or something, because bad choice. I don't know why we went up there. And we were there, and I remember asking them, one of the questions I asked them is, what do you want to be known for? Like who do you want to be? And the question was not, what do you want to be like as a profession? What do you want to do for a living? That wasn't the question. The question was, like, what do you want to be known for? And I remember Jane and Oliver gave me the answer, I want to be, so one of them was, I want to be kind, I want to be known a person's kind. One was, I want to be known to be smart, like, intellectually, like, you want to be smart. And I was like, that's amazing. And what's cool is, as I knew that, I knew how to have a conversation with them that was different. Here's where I think a lot of our conversations go wrong. I'm just going to say this as a person, like I teach interpersonal communication, I teach this stuff a lot. And let me just give you like one quick hint that I think we run into a lot. If you have a really hard time in our words separating who someone is from what that person does. Those aren't the same thing. There are times where we all want to do things that are disappointing. That does not mean that we are a disappointment. And if we start to treat each other that way, it will only break each other down. Those words are words that we can say, sticks and stones don't break our bones. We can say that we're going to forgive and forget. If you can forgive those words, you will not forgive those words. You will not. And this is what happens when we start having a conversation, by the way. This is super practical. This isn't a biblical thing to report. It's just straight up. If you have these conversations, always and never should not be part of your vocabulary. When you get into an argument, you get into a dispute, when it's that kind of thing, never allow it to become something where always and never are used. Because that becomes a value statement, becomes a statement about you are always this person. So if the dishes are not done, if the laundry didn't get accomplished, if the yard is not mowed, and it's like you always or you never, that is only going to confirm the situation. Also, by starting with you, don't start a sentence with you. Don't do that. It's only going to make it worse. Start with I. If you start with I and you make it all I statements, then it's just your perception of the situation. It's not totally on the other person. And here's what happens. I'll be honest with you. This is something I realized about myself, and I've mentioned it before. is I realized that there were times where I was hearing a statement as a value statement. You didn't know that. There were times where I would like Marie would say something to me, and she would just be saying a statement. Just a statement. So there was one time, for instance, William and Josh were walking out of the house, and Marie looks at the kids' bikes and says, "Their tires need to be replaced on the bike." Tires were crazy worn down, they were in bad shape. Did you hear what she said? She said the tires on the bike need to be replaced. Here's what Kevin heard. It's a new problem. I heard, and Kevin, like, didn't grow up with a dad. He's really not good at being handy. He doesn't know how to replace tires. He doesn't take care of our kids' stuff. Like, Kevin's pretty useless, honestly. We should just get somebody better in here if he doesn't know how to do any of this stuff. Was that what Marie said? Just clear? Absolutely not. Not even close. I would say that very often a shame, it's the shame in you, to be honest, it's the shame in you that makes us hear statements of value statements. For those of us listening, we have to be really careful, but for those of us speaking, we also have to be careful. Don't allow this to become value statements. Because a value statement would have been really painful. Had she said, and there are people that do this, you never take care of the kids' lives. You hear that become a value statement pretty quickly, but you don't care. You never do this with that. It becomes a value statement, and it moves much deeper within the person. And this is why it's very different to say, you did not study for your test, than it is to say, you're dumb, or you're lazy, or you're not good at this stuff. No, that's value statement stuff. You're not speaking about who they are, not just what they do. Marriages fall apart from this stuff, guys. It's irreparable. I'm not just saying this because I think it's a nice little lesson for us to talk about. I have seen marriages break apart just based on these words alone. That it moves from, you don't do this, you don't mow the lawn, to you are lazy. And you are lazy becomes a value statement, and now stuff you can't start taking that. You made a value statement. So you have to separate what you do from who you are. You are not a disappointed man. You're just a disappointed being. Very different conversation. On the flip side, there are times we can talk to each other though, and we can bring out the best in each other. It says that you could be soothing like a tree of life. With my kids, one of the things I love is that being able to now have these conversations with them where it's not about what they do. It's saying, you want to be known as somebody who is kind. That's who you are. Now, the action you did not match up to the kindness that you want to pursue, but that's the action. That's not who you are, that's just what you did. Because I know you want to be kind, because I know you want to be known as smart and intellectually stimulated, like you're a person who wants to know knowledge and things like that. What you did was something that was not a great test score, but that doesn't mean you're not smart and you don't want to be known as that. You see the difference? Taking a value statement, taking what you do away from who you are. This is why almost the entire New Testament, guys, is word for word written this way. Read Galatians, read Ephesians, even read Romans. Paul does not start with what you do. He always starts with who you are in Christ. This is who you are. Now let me call you up to that. This is who you are because of what Christ has done to us. Let me call you up to the level that you're supposed to be at. That's what he does. He never begins with, let me tell you everything you've done wrong. Let me tell you how bad you are. Let me tell you who you are that is wrong. No, let me tell you who you are and what is right about that. And let me then call you up to the life that you're supposed to get. And we use our words so many times to tear people down. We start putting value on them by the words we say. It's dangerous. But we have the ability to call them up to something better. And I remember even this weekend I had to have I call it an I-C-in-you conversation. I don't know if you've ever had anybody do this. It's literally, I use those letters, I-C-in-you. Have you ever had anybody do this? Where you're sitting down, I remember as a kid, I had a person who was a mentor of mine. It was somebody very, very close to me. Sat me down at one point and said, this is an I-C-in-you conversation. And he told me, I see in you, and he started telling me the things that he saw that were positive things that were good, things that people believed about me that were going to be things that would be true of me down the road. I don't know if you ever had a conversation with this. I would encourage you to have this conversation. Here's what I see in you. And start to call me up to that. I got to have this conversation with my son this week. Oliver, and I'll just back for a quick second. My son was had a huge week this week where he was shooting a commercial for AAA, and he was number one on the call sheet. He was the guy in this commercial. Remember, that started on Monday morning at 8 a.m. He had a call time to be there and go start shooting this commercial, and he had all these lines memorized, all these things he had to do. And the night before, he was nervous. Like, he was super nervous. I don't blame him. I think we all would have been nervous. And I went into his room, and we sat down for a second, and he told me, he said, I'm really nervous here. And he said, I said, what are you nervous about? What if I don't do that? What if I forget on my line? What if I don't? What if I'm not what they're looking for? What if I'm not the right person for it? And I remember being able to have this conversation, and again, parents who don't get it right very often. And I told him, I said, I'm not worried about what you do, buddy. I'm not worried about how you perform. Like, I'm proud of you. And I'm going to be proud of you whether you do awesome in this commercial or you don't. I'm going to be super proud of you. I am proud of you, and I think you have an incredible amount of talent. I think you're going to be incredibly gifted at this stuff. I think that I see in you a kid who has so much potential. That's what I see in you. I see in you a kid that has a great heart, like a kid who's doing the right things, like a kid who I believe wants to be kind, and that's the most important thing at this moment. So it doesn't really matter how you do it this commercial. Because I see in you a value that's much greater than just the sum of its parts of what you do. We had that conversation with him, and some of the others that talked to you. Again, you don't get it right very often, but I work out in you. You know? The words we have the power to build people up or to tear people down. Now, that's if we create life. That's the creation side. I'm going to be honest, we're going to move kind of down the rabbit trail here of like what that doesn't do. Because the words we use also have the power to start to confuse. They don't always work out this well. And if we're not careful with our words, we will confuse the good and the bad. We'll start to find this middle ground. It's not what we want to be. In chapter 12, again, as we read a second ago, verse 18, it says this, it says, the words of the reckless pierce like swords, but the tongue of the wise brings healing. The words of the reckless pierce like swords. And when we realize that the reckless are going to be those that don't use their words wisely. Chapter 17, verse 28. He goes into this a little further. Chapter 17, verse 28 says, even fools are thought wise if they keep silent, and discerning if they hold their tongues. Guys, this is a verse that if you want to get a life verse tattooed on your body, this is the one. Even fools are thought wise if they keep silent, and discerning if they hold their tongues. As my father used to say, people wouldn't know how ignorant you are if you didn't talk so much. But real bad, very honest, and probably great advice. You wouldn't know how ignorant you are if you wouldn't talk so much. You see what's happening when it becomes confusing is because we just use words carelessly. We're just throwing words out there. I remember a few years ago, I was in if you remember me about this, I was in this speech competition across the world. I was doing this thing where I was going to become, I became one of the world's number one speakers, or I was going to be in the world of America in a speech competition. I did this whole thing. I remember I had done this speech a few times, and they asked me, I had won a bunch of competitions with this speech, and they said, you said it's a transcript of the speech. And I was like, oh, like a transcript, but you want it written down? And they're like, yeah. And I was like, I've never written a speech down. And they're like, well, how are you doing the speech? And I was like, well, I memorize it, and I just say it. I just can't talk. And they were like, well, okay, we need you to write it down and send it to us. So I wrote it down, and I sent this transcript of the speech to this guy who was a world champion public speaker. And he took a look at it, and it was about 1,400 words. And he sent me back with a revised copy, and it was about 700 words. And I was real mad, because I was like, I worked hard on this. It's a lot of work. And he was like, you don't know it. It's been way too many words to get to the point that you need to shorten this down because you're getting off message and off topic. You're going all over the place. Friends, I think a lot of times our lives are kind of that way with the words we say, because we're so cavalier, we're so casual about it, that we just throw words out there thinking they have no weight and no meaning. And it takes us off of the topic or the thing at hand. It takes us away from being good people who are doing the right thing and the purpose that we want to have in front of us. It takes us away from that stuff. It causes actual confusion in who you are and the life you live. Some of the words you say, they're carelessly thrown out there. They take away from the life you're living. Because I don't know about you, but I see people that they say certain words, I see the way they live, and the two things do not go together. Sometimes they say really good words that sound really, really beneficial and really, really godly. And then I watch their life and I'm like, whoa, those don't match. Or vice versa. I hear them say certain things that come out of their mouth. And I'm sure a person who is living this way. Does it happen happen? No, they can't happen. It's going to be confused because his words are just cavalierly thrown around. He doesn't. Again, he mentions this one more time in Proverbs chapter 10. In chapter 10, verse 19. He says, sin is not ended, I love it, sin is not ended by multiplying words, but the prudent hold their tongue. Just because you keep putting more words out there doesn't mean it's going to get better. Right? It's only going to make it worse. This is actually one of the problems we have in our society right now, is that we tend towards the negative. We have too many words. We get confusion out there and problems out there. This is one of the problems. If you ever read up on the whole cycle of how we got to where we are from food stamp all the way to what we live with now, a 24-hour news cycle. Oh man, I was wondering if you heard of that, huh? 24-hour news cycle, what was going to happen? We had so many words to just fill up stuff. And when we start having to have words to just fill up stuff, not because we have something to say, because we have to say something, then suddenly we just start throwing out negative things. It will always tend towards the negative. You will not have anything that you have extra words about that will be positive. In fact, there's been study upon study that the more that you talk, the more you put things out there, the more negative it will naturally get. And the news is a great example of that. When we had to fill up space, did it get better? Like, did it get better because we have more words to say? Are we all now so much happier because we have 24-hour news cycles? Anybody thrilled about that? Have we seen the world get to be a better place? No, absolutely not. It's only gotten worse. Why? Because we're going to tend that way, because we're not careful with what we're saying. We're multiplying words. We're not prudent in what we're saying. And what happens is we start to do that, and we start to create these pieces of what we're saying. It actually starts to become, in my opinion, what happens is we start to have to put words on certain things and label things. And then we have to start calling people things or start having names around what other people are. And we start putting labels on them. Friends, when you start putting labels on things, you start dehumanizing people. And I've seen it happen way too many times where suddenly that people are only a label to us because we have to have all these words. And those words get angry and those words start to become misplaced. And so we throw a label on them so that we can dehumanize people so they just become a Republican or just become a Democrat or they just become gay or straight or they just become whatever the thing is we need to put on them. Right? They become educated or they're idiots or whatever it is. We need to have those, they're too educated, too smart, or they're not smart enough, or whatever it is. We will create these classes of people and dehumanize them. And it's actually the opposite of everything that Jesus teaches us on how to be careful with our words. Jesus only speaks life when he's supposed to speak life. He does not throw words around cavalierly. He's very, very conscious of what he's saying. And for us, we start to do that. And what it looks like at the end of the day is that becomes looking a lot more like the curse than it does like creation. We now live completely from the creation of heaven on earth, where we are now playing an active part in living in the curse of the brokenness of this world. Our words, here's the thing, it's not just words matter, but our words matter. Our words, the words we say matter. And the words we say matter, and guess what? Here's the scariest part, I just want to put this out there. The words we say, our words matter to God. So they don't just matter to each other. Our words don't just matter because of the things we say to each other. The words we say carry weight. It's actually, this is kind of terrifying to think about it. our words actually matter not just because we're humans talking to each other, they matter to God. God seems to take this into account in what he says about us. Now again, if you go back into chapter 12, you'll see that there's some of this stuff in chapter 12, verse 22, that as we look at the Lord and what he sees in this, it says, the Lord detests lying lips, but he delights in people who are trustworthy. He detests lying lips. The Lord is involved in this. In fact, think about it for just a quick second. Like, it's in the Ten Commandments, isn't it? Like, God actually has a feeling about what you say. In the Ten Commandments, we see in Exodus chapter 20, right? I think it's verse 16, is where it tells us that you shall not bear false witness against your neighbor. That's a commandment about the words you say. It actually matters that much to God. Again, Proverbs 12, verse 22. The Lord detests lying lips, and he delights in people who are trustworthy. These are actual things that God cares about. Verse 23. The prudent keeps their knowledge to himself, but a fool's heart blurts out folly. These are things that matter to God. These are actually words that God cares about. And the reason I believe is we're going to be judged on this. This is stuff that's going to matter to us. Right? As Jesus says in Matthew chapter 6, the reason that he cares about this is because what comes out of our mouths is a reflection of what's in our heart. He's judging the words we say because it's in our heart. Leonard Ravenhill, who was a famous evangelist and a philosopher, and has some really great writings on this. He says this. He says, we speak thousands of words every day. And all these words are accumulated. The good words, the bad words, the criticized words. We're so flippant with our words. We're so easy with our criticism. We stab and we injure and we hurt. And he continues on, he says, and God is judging our words. God is paying attention to these words. When we think that these words don't matter, it turns out they matter not just to us, but to God. Because it comes from our heart. And what's happening in our hearts is an overflow that comes out of our mouth. Again, chapter 12, last thing in chapter 12, verses 17 through 19. An honest witness tells the truth, but a false witness tells lies. The words of the reckless pierce like swords, but the tongue of the wise and healing. Truthful lips endure forever, but a lying tongue lasts only a minute. A lying tongue lasts only for a moment. I want you to think about that for just a second, what Solomon's saying here, and why it matters. Again, you shall not bear false witness. This is words from God himself. Why? Because Jesus calls Satan the father of lies. That confusion we bring into the world, the lies that we put into the world, if we're not careful with the words we say, we start to speak the same lies that he is speaking. We start to say the same things that he's saying. And sometimes those are outright lies. Sometimes they're just about our performance, things we don't want people to know about us. We lie about ourselves, we lie about what we have, we lie about the things that we've done. Sometimes it's because of the insecurity that we have. But sometimes we also take on the lies of the accuser, of Satan. And what are those lies? Those lies are the lies that you're not good enough. That you're not loved. That's the lie that he wants us to believe. That if you admit your sin, you're going to trust him. That you're not good enough. Those are the lies that he really wants us to believe, and those are sometimes the words that come out of our mouths by making value statements and hurting people with words we say. These are the things that scare me, because in our world we have this idea that lies are kind of okay. And especially, like, I don't know, politics. If you lie, there's part of us that believes those things justify means. You've got to do what you got to do. And we've got two of us in our businesses sometimes, and there's two of us in our families, and there's two of us in daily operators. You don't justify the means, so you got to say what you got to say to get through it. It's really scary, because according to this, we'll be judged on that. And when we do that, we look more like Satan than we do like Christ. I think it's really scary the way that we don't always take it as seriously as we should. Because our words don't matter to us, they matter to God. I just want to kind of close with just one thing, if I was to give you kind of a practice, or something to try with it. I would say to try to speak in this way, and this might sound really weird, so I apologize for helping this out. If you study what prophecy really is, we have studied the prophecy as kind of fortune telling, kind of mystical fabrication of the future, and here's what's going to happen to you, predicted indexes of what's going to happen in your life. That's not what prophecy is at all. Prophecy doesn't work that way. In fact, in 1 Corinthians, when Paul tells us what prophecy is for, he said in 1 Corinthians chapter 14, verse 3, he says, "But the one who prophesies speaks to people for strengthening, encouraging, and comfort." It's for strengthening, it's for encouragement, and it's for comfort. That's what it really is. And I love this part. The Schellenbach Institute has a piece on it. Just want to kind of it takes it a step further of understanding the kind of an entire idea behind it. So, righteousness is a pattern of life, not merely a specific fact. What it is, it states that personhood, not merely performance, disposition rather than deed, character beyond content. All the stuff behind it. In that righteousness of life, we have this new version of ourselves. When we understand that, I just want to say this real quickly, is that it's God speaking through us. That's what prophecy really is, when God is speaking through you. And I think the prophecy, to understand prophecy and to live in prophecy for us, is a really simple thing. And there's an ABC's prophecy that I use a lot, and here's what it is. Okay, so it's ABC's prophecy. The first is that your A is affirming. It should always be affirming. That's what Paul writes about with affirmation. Second is that it's biblical. What you should say should always be a biblically based conversation. It's not something you're making up or you're coming up with. It has a biblical backing to what you're saying. That's the B. And the C is that it's Christ-like. So this is a Christ-like conversation. I really do wonder about that. If we were to have those kind of conversations, and they were affirming, they were Christ-like, and they were biblical, and they weren't coming from us, but we were actually asking God, what do you want me to say with my words in this moment? I really do wonder what your meetings would look like in your workplace. I really do wonder what would happen in the meeting after the meeting in your workplace. You guys know what I'm talking about. I wonder what would happen in your family. I would wonder how your parenting would look different, how your marriage would look different. I wonder how your friendships would look different. I wonder how mine would be different. If everything I thought through was, what does God want to say to this? Is it affirming? Is it biblical? Is it Christ-like? If that's what I'm saying, I guarantee you there's never going to be a moment where I need to put something back in the feed. Where everything I said, I want to take back. No, I guarantee all those things are be proud of the work that I put out there, and that God will be happy and find fulfillment in the work that I put into the world. That they will be able to create and not curse. They'll be able to create and not cause confusion. They'll be words that are creating life around me, more like the garden and less like the world. I wonder what that will be like. And so as we close, just for a second, what I want to do is I want to just close with this song. And this is the beginning. What I want to do is I want you to just take a second and focus on your own heart and the words that you say. Because those words come from someone. I want you to focus on this thing. And think about how you can be affirming, how you can be biblical in Christ of everything you say. And ask yourself this question. So as we pray this, is this true? I want you to ask yourself this over and over. May the words of my mouth and this meditation in my heart be pleasing in your sight. Is that true of you? Is that true of me? Are the words of my mouth and the meditation in my heart, are they pleasing in your sight? And so for just a second, I'm just going to ask you just to close your eyes, bow your head right where you're at. I'm going to ask you just to meditate on that. Are the words of my mouth and the meditation in my heart, are they pleasing in your sight? Would you ask God that and ask the Holy Spirit to reveal to you for real Are the words of your mouth, the things that you're saying, are they pleasing? Is the meditation of my heart, the things I'm thinking about, the things I'm struggling with, the things I'm worried about, is that meditation of my heart, is that pleasing in your sight, Lord? Is it? We just pray those words. We pray, we don't need to look at the students. We pray those words. May these words of my mouth and this meditation of my heart be pleasing in your sight. May these words of my mouth, this meditation of my heart be pleasing in your sight. Holy Spirit, we invite you to listen to the things that we say. We invite you to search us and to pick apart the times that we're speaking words that are confusing or recursive. We ask you to pick apart the things we're saying and you pick apart the motivation behind the meditation in the heart. If you pick those things apart, be honest with us about the times that we're bringing just more confusion and more hurt into this world, or would you show us the ways that in our marriages, in our families, in our workplaces, in our parenting, how we can be people who create life in the people around us, in the ways we can. I pray that we would always speak words that are affirming. I pray we would be wise enough to speak words that are biblical. I pray that we would be the kind of people who follow you so closely that everything we say is right, in the way we say it, in the words we say. We love you and thank you for your incredible love for us. And thank you for the way that you take care of us, the way you guide us, the way you shepherd us, and you do it so gently. And I pray that even in this time, that if we need to be corrected or moved or changed in the way that we're saying things or doing things, that you would do that. That you would move those things around. That even this week as we go into workplace and into homes, that we would be people who are people who speak life into the people around us, and to employees, and to baristas, and to friends, and to children, and to spouses. We love you and we thank you for your love for us. Praise you. Amen.